Kevin Pearce's journey is one of extraordinary talent, devastating setbacks, and a profound transformation. Once the pinnacle of professional snowboarding, his life took an unexpected turn after a traumatic brain injury. Now, through his advocacy work and upcoming documentary, Thrive, Kevin shares an inspiring story of resilience, mental health awareness, and the power of finding purpose beyond adversity.
Thank you so much, Kevin Pearce, for joining me here in AwareNow to share this space and to share your story. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So let's begin this way. Kevin, you were at the top of your game, living every snowboarder's dream, when everything changed in an instant. I wonder if we could start with you taking us back to that moment and to share how it felt to reconcile your identity as an elite athlete with the new reality that you faced after your injury.
All right. Well, let's start here. Let's start at the before. So we'll get into in 2008 was able to start winning the biggest snowboard contest in the world and being one of the best competitive snowboarders, up there with the likes of Shaun White and Torstein Hargmo and Mark McMorris and those guys. I was up there with the best, and I was this superstar. I went to Japan, and my nickname was the American Dream in Japan. So I drop into these indoor big air jumps that they made out of snow, and there'd be 60,000 people, and they'd be dropping next, American Dream, Kevin Pearce, hey. And it was just it would be I'd step up in those moments when the heat was on and all the attention and 50,000 people were watching me. It was I would do stuff that I'd never done before, and I did this multiple times. And since it all happened, I've learned of the flow state, or being in the zone. And it's this certain place that athletes are able to get where the impossible becomes possible, and they do things George Mumford actually wrote this book called The Mindful Athlete that speaks about it, and speaks about how he taught Michael Jordan how to get into the zone. And I was fully in the zone there at that time and doing these tricks 1260s that I'd never done before. And I dropped in and I do it perfectly. And it was that, to have that feeling of being in the zone is unlike anything I've ever experienced in my life. So I was at the top of professional snowboarding. And then, as you said, in an instant, it was completely over. But then how it kind of unfolded from there is what's so, it's so weird and wild, because the brain is so complex and there's so much going on, that it wasn't I just woke up one day and I was oh my God, I can't go to the Olympics, and oh my God, I can't be a professional snowboarder. But instead, I thought, and I believed, and I imagined that I'd be able to get back to some sort of snowboarding for years. It wasn't just days after healing. It was it wasn't just months after healing. It was years and years of this false imagination that I'd get back to a form of snowboarding, of this thing that I love so much and that I was so good at. And now, sitting here nearly 15 years later and getting back to snowboarding, don't get me wrong, I still snowboard and love to snowboard, but not in the competitive way that I was doing it. So it was just kind of this crazy, drawn out process of, it was really 10 years. It was 10 years of 10 years of healing, I guess you could say. This brain that I injured so terribly.
Yeah. I love that 10 years of healing, because it's broke, it doesn't stay broken necessarily. There are ways to move forward. And
yeah, which is so cool, because I've done so much in those 10 years of healing, of creating this neuroplasticity and these new pathways and these new connections because of how bad I broke them all. And I guess before we get into all the ways I did that, I'll start by saying that I had a really bad concussion a week and a half before this fall, the one on December 31st. And because of the second concussion syndrome is why the head injury was so bad. The fall wasn't that bad. Like, how lucky am I that it's on film and you can watch it? But if you watch it, you're kind of like, oh, like, yeah, that was bad. But like, as an action sports athlete, it's like we take falls and like you jump up and you go again. But my brain was already concussed from an accident a week and a half before. So like, it was the second concussion syndrome that kind of hit it, just didn't work out. For me, it's been this process of so long, of something that, of having so many injuries before, of breaking all the different bones in my body from being a professional snowboarder. That's what happens to this brain of mine that I injured that didn't just heal. I mean, it wasn't like it was a couple of weeks or a couple of months, but like I said, 10 years of constant and continued work of making all the right choices, of, you know, taking all the right supplements, of eating all the right foods, of doing all the right exercise, of getting enough sleep, of, you know, there's so many things. And as I say that, the last thing I just said there, which is sleep, which is probably the most important thing for an injured brain, is to let it rest. And that's the last thing I just said on that list. There's so many things that it's almost overwhelming. And then you throw a brain injury on top of that. It's like, now imagine how overwhelmed I am. So it's such a hard one to deal with. But I feel like for me, I sit here now in this place of total and complete happiness. I wouldn't have changed this for anything, sitting here and with a beautiful wife and two of the cutest babies you could ever imagine, and having a third boy on the way, and just like how my life just like is exploding now. And I don't quite understand of how I could be so lucky to have something so bad turn out so good. But at the same time, it's like, that's life. Bad things happen to all of us. And it's not about what happens to you or what, you know, your experiences have been or how hard it's been, but it's how you've dealt with them and how you've gotten to here right now is the approach I've taken. It's not about like having this severe traumatic brain injury or having a missing leg or whatever it might be. It's about how you continue your life. You know, we're not here for that long.
Yeah.
I'm 37. I got another, 50 years, hopefully. That's like a blink of an eye. So it's like, why do we worry and complain and whine about what happened to us? Or you can say, okay, this happened to me and I'm going to deal with it and I'm going to live my life. And maybe you're blind. Maybe you can't talk. We all have something. And if you don't have something, like, what kind of life have you lived? That's like, it's like, that's part of life. Everybody deals with something. And that's taking that approach has been super, I think, effective for me. And, you know, in the early stages, you can't have that approach. In the early stages of brain injury, in being in that place of being so badly damaged, I didn't have anything except my family. And so for there, it was like having that family support and that mom and that dad, that when you watch this documentary about me, it's like the number one thing is my brother David, who has Down syndrome, and him stepping up, and my mom and dad and my brother Adam. And then there's this just like massive amount of love and support. And having that, as like now being a father, it's like, that's all I want to do for my kids. It's like, is what my parents did and continue to do for me.
And that is so beautiful. I mean, it takes a village, right? That we can't this isn't something that we do alone. We're not on this journey alone. You know, when we talk about recovering, specifically, let's talk recovering from a traumatic brain injury. It's, to your point, it's not just about physical healing, it's emotional, mental journey as well. So I guess if we could focus for a moment, just for maybe those who have been there or who are there right now, for you, what were some of those really hard moments? What were some of those dark moments that you encountered? And how did you find your way out of them? How did you find a way to keep moving forward?
Yeah, for me, sitting here this long later, it's almost like I try and and block that out because it was so dark and it was so depressing and it was so bad. But when you say that, the first thing I think of is just feeling hopeless and just feeling like I'm nobody. In from the outside, it's like I'm sitting there and I'm this professional snowboarder that's had this awesome career, and like how could I feel that way? But like that's where I got to, like the deepest, darkest places of depression and sadness and not being able to snowboard, not having a job, not having a license, like relearning how to walk, relearning how to talk, relearning how to swallow. And then like these things starting to happen again where it's like I have nothing. I am nobody, and I am I'm useless. I'm terrible. And getting through that was, I think, the hardest for me. And just how time just slows down after a brain injury. For me, it's like time, everything goes so fast. Everyone says speed goes so fast. And oh my gosh, it's already December 5th. Like, where did the year go? What happened? And for me, it was like, oh my gosh, every day felt like a month. And, months felt like time just slowed down for me. And nothing would work. Nothing would go well for me. That's another one that I remember. Everything felt like it went wrong. Everything from the smallest to the biggest, the smallest things in life, like you spill your water, or you trip over your shoelace, or like everything, all the little things go wrong. And then all the big things in my life, my sponsors were gone. I didn't have an income. Like I didn't have a girlfriend. I didn't have anywhere to live. I didn't have anything. And it was just like, everything was negative. And then and I don't know how, and it's so hard to sit here right now with you and say how I got past that, because now that is completely gone. Like the negative, bad. And it's almost like weird to talk about it, because I don't really talk about it, because that part of my life, it's like, I don't want to think about that, the bad. I don't want to think about when everything was like terrible and sucked and I didn't have anything, because now I'm here. And like I said, I have a family, I have a wife, I have 2 houses, like I have like more than everything. It's like completely gone to the other side of the table, where now I'm just like thriving. And that's why this documentary coming out is like, couldn't be a better time, with the 3rd baby coming and my 2nd house about to be done, and like just like this massive explosion happening right now of goodness, of like greatness. And it's like, I don't know, I guess I wouldn't enjoy this feeling of happiness and being so grateful right now as much if I didn't get to that place of being so low and so depressed and ready to end, like 100% ready to end it. Just being like, there's no point of being here. Like my double vision was so severe that like there was no way I was going to make one image of the world. And now I sit here looking at you with perfect single vision. So it's like another part of my brain injury. It's like, and as I keep talking, it'll just like continue on the things that have happened.
Right. And so it is amazing. And I think for you to say, you don't want to look back at like those dark places, because you're at this total 180 of a space now. But for those who are in that dark place, to know, to listen to your words, to hear your story and say, it's possible. This isn't my always. This is my moment, but it doesn't have to be this way.
But when you're in it, it feels like it always has to be that way. And like, for those of you listening who are in it right now, or who are dealing with it, just like never give up hope, because it's so easy to give up hope, because when you're in the thick of a brain injury, everything is so bad. It's not just like one little thing do you mess up on, or like one conversation, maybe you don't have a good conversation with someone. It's every single thing, every single second of your day are you reminded of this brain injury. And I always used to talk about that, how like I'd be reminded of this forever. And like, that's totally not the case anymore. I live a totally like just regular, awesome, incredible life, where it's like my life isn't And for so many years, my life was run by my brain injury. And like, I don't know, there's just like so much happiness inside of me that like, because that is a dark, nasty time. There's nothing, I don't think that I can say there was anything positive about like being in that situation. Now being out of it, I can say I've learned so much, and I've grown so much, and I've been able to figure out so many different things. But at that time when you're in it, it's so bad and it's so dark that just there's nothing.
Right.
And that's a hard place to be.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and so all the more reason, all the more important, this documentary that you're doing. So Thrive, it shares a title that suggests growth and flourishing. So new question, what does thriving mean to you today? And how has success, the definition of success, evolved since your days on this stuff?
Yeah, so success has totally changed for me from I mean it's kind of like everything's kind of black and white now compared to what it used to be, because it used to be success was winning the Olympics. That was my goal, was to get an Olympic gold medal. And like that's why I was trying these tricks to, and doing the double corks, is because I knew I needed to do these tricks to win, and I wasn't ready to settle for second. Like, and that's how I've always been my whole life. I've always been like all in 100% on everything. And like, that's what it's been with my vision, and getting this vision from crazy double back to single, is it's like I wasn't ready to settle for anything but perfection. So like that was a crazy one, is to go from like having so much success to then having less than none. Because when you have a brain injury, it's like, I don't know, it's such a weird thing to live with now. And because I don't know, in so many ways it's looked at, it's so bad. And then you see people with brain injuries and you're like, oh gosh, like I don't want to be like that. And I don't know, it's a tough one. But what was the first part of your question?
Basically just what does thriving mean to you, and then just like defining success in a different way now.
Yeah, so thriving, I guess, is like, I feel like I thought I was thriving when I was snowboarding professionally, but this feels like a real thrive to me, to be raising a family and to really be in a place of true happiness. I don't know how, when you're 17, 18, like sure, I was in complete happiness on my snowboard, but now that's a different sort of happiness. Now it's like an honest, real, like deep happiness, where I'm just like in this place of total and complete comfort.
Oh, that's beautiful. It's so beautiful. So let's talk about the fact that after your injury, you pivoted, you shifted from snowboarding to becoming this voice for brain injury awareness, mental health. How has this new purpose shaped your life? And I guess, what is the message that you hope to leave with those who watch your film?
Yeah, well, I guess, now with this totally changed purpose, right? From going from a pro snowboarder to a public speaker is like kind of like, once again, black and white, like everything in my life now. And it's like, I don't know, in no way do I get the same joy from what I'm doing now, but it does feel good when you go out there and I do all these events and I do all these different, gatherings, to see people that do, take something away from it, and they do leave and they're like, wow, that did help, or that did touch me, or I can get something from that. Whereas when I was snowboarding, it was really kind of all about me, and it's all about Kevin. It was all about me getting better and me doing bigger tricks. And with what I'm doing now, and this new documentary, Thrive, it feels like it's going to show how like you can thrive and you can have a purpose in life.
Yeah, absolutely. one more question for you today, my friend. So in different interviews, different things that you've shared, you've spoken about the critical role, and even here today about your family and community, like playing in your recovery. How did their support help you to rebuild your life? And I guess what would be one more piece of advice that you would give to families and to individuals who are facing similar challenges?
Yeah, well, I guess for the, to start with the support side, it was like above and beyond the amount of support, my family gave me. And it was my mom and my dad, of course, were there from day one and the whole time. But then having my brother Adam jump in and live at the hospital with me at Craig Hospital in Denver and do all the rehabs with me. It wasn't just like he came to one day at rehab. He was there for like 3.5 months, every day, all day, turning the rehabs into a game and making them, because he knew how competitive I was. And, especially with Adam, it's like, I got to beat your older brother. You can't let your older brother beat you. And there I am, like, brain injured, and I couldn't even like play the game. And like, all I wanted to do was beat my brother because he was my older brother. And so he was the one that just like kept me at it and like kept it positive, such a negative time, he brought the light to it. And so having that in then to continue that on, from Colorado and then back to Vermont, and, then living at home with my parents and having to re-get my driver's license and start like life over again, after being one of the best in the world at something. It was kind of like, what? Like, I'm not a baby again. Like, but you become a child again, and you have to relearn all these things. And, that was a wild one to have to start life over again, at the age of 22. And I think I was lucky because I was young, but at the same time, when you're 21, you're 45. You're not 22. When you're 22, you think you're the man. And then imagine being the best in the world at something. How do you think you feel? So it was like,
Yeah,
it was definitely a juggle of all of that. And I don't know, I feel like, listening to my mom would be the number one piece of advice I could give to the listeners out there trying to figure out something, because all moms want to do is help. And all, being a parent, I know that all they want is the best for their child. And that's not what, if that's not the case with your mom and you're like, no, my mom's wrong, no, my mom doesn't know, no, I don't need a nap. It's like, that's your brain lying to you. And that's your brain, thinking, like my brain was lying to me, telling me I was going to get back to snowboarding. Not for 1 year or 2 years. I thought I was going to get back to snowboarding for a decade. And like, so listening and like being open to listening is huge with the brain injury, because people with brain injuries, I'm sitting here with one, I'm not talking about them. It's like, you very much think that you know. And I thought I knew before I had a brain injury, and then you put that on top of it, and I was like, nobody can tell me anything. I know everything. Like, don't even try it. And that's like, it's like, that's why brain injuries are so hard, is because that's the opposite of what needs to be happening. It's like, just calm down, just like take a few steps back, take a couple breaths, listen, and just kind of just slow it down.
slow it down. The power of this film. Let's talk about that. Its intended outcome. Like, why did you make it? Why?
Yeah, it feels like there's so much in this film that is going to give people so much life. And I guess at the end of the day, for me, it's like, it's about being happy. Like, we're here for 80, 90 years if we're lucky. Like, why not make that time happy and make it fun and like make it successful? Like, it feels like there's so much negativity out there, and there's so many downers out there, and there's so many people so mad in life. It's like, you're just gonna die, and people are like, oh, I don't want to think about death. It's like, I'm the kind of person where I'm like, I don't care what you want to think about. You're gonna die. I'm gonna die, and it's not that long till that happens. So why not, while we're here for this short little snippet that we get, is to make it good and to make it fun and to make it impactful. And that's what we're doing with this movie. We're going to be able to show this impact of of what life's like after these head injuries and how you can continue to be even more successful and you can be even better and even greater things can happen. Like me getting to go on one of the best snowboarding trips of my entire life. I've been on a lot of snowboarding trips around the world, and this was like one of the most special that I've ever been on. And then getting to go and see these doctors who scanned my brain 14 years ago and the healing that's happened over the past 14 years and how you can't even recognize these two brains side by side. And then for Kobe with his Aussie rules and playing those sports at that level of such high intensity, and like you watch that stuff and it's just like they're just I don't know, they're like I'm a pro snowboarder and I see these Aussie rules player and I'm like I would never go near one of these guys, just like attacking each other in like the most awesome ways. And just like where Kobe was in his career, in his height, and then just like with the head injuries and what that does to you, and then going on these trips with him and seeing that like Kobe's one of my best friends and one of the coolest kids I know of in the world, and like making these new connections and these new friendships and these new lives. There's so many different things that happen in this movie that is just like so unreal to me that it's even possible in life. And then like as we were talking about getting back to the flow state, it feels like there's been times in this movie where the stuff's been so good and so magical that I'm back in that place of just like complete ease and happiness.
That is beautiful. So when is this thing going to come out? Because we need to see this.